Y'all bringing it for another Rapport Wednesday. Of course, that means Mike Gittens is in the house. I appreciate you stopping by, my friend. The co-founder and a co-host on the War Rapport. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Auburn is not. Auburn football is not. It's almost basketball season. We had tip-off at Toomers last week, and they blocked out Toomers. We had players jumping over Bruce Pearl's head to dunk. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Let's start with a happy note there. Your experience with tip-off at Toomers, how much fun was that?
Yeah, just a blast. Lots of great entertainment. They had performing artists out there, and what you saw, men's and women's basketball out there, just having a really good time. They had recruits in attendance, so Fantastic. It was a really good show for the recruits. The creative director for women's basketball, he showed me drone footage they had of Toomers. Had about over 10,000 people out there at Toomers Corner for tip-off at Toomers. So it was a great show. It was very positive. I think there's a lot of energy around basketball season this year, and I've spoken ad nauseum about how well I think they have a chance to do on the women's side. But on the men's side, they've got one of the toughest non-conferences we've seen. You see they're going to Duke on December 4th.
Crazy.
That's going to be a lot of great storylines for Auburn basketball this year.
And we'll talk about that eventually. Tip-off at Toomers, I think one of the greatest basketball traditions we had when they kicked that off a few years ago. Because, you know, the Midnight Madness, it happens in gyms across America. But having it at Toomers, that's just a really cool twist to it. Now to business. We got to talk about Auburn football. So Auburn goes into Mizzou. Looks like everything's going great. They're up 17-6. Brady Cook goes out. You know, in the non-contact injury, don't ever want injuries wished on anybody. But he pulls off this Danny LaRusso, Willis Reed for another kind of reference, heroic comeback to the stadium, leads Mizzou to a comeback. Your initial thoughts on, for lack of a better term, the collapse that happened in Columbia?
Well, credit to Missouri and credit to Brady Cook. Before we started recording, you and I talked about he went to the hospital and came back. So we all know what happened at that hospital, Rex. All reports were it was a high ankle sprain. You don't just come back and run on a high ankle sprain without something that numbs you.
You're out for a good minute with that.
However, he did come back, and he did what top quarterbacks do, and he led his team to the victory. Now, he got help from Auburn, and I think probably the most frustrating thing about that was the drive that Auburn had before Brady Cook came back. Robert Lewis misses the touchdown pass that wins the game. Your kicker follows that up by missing a chip shot field goal, so you get no points out of that drive. For a team that's struggling to move the ball at times, and definitely struggling in the red zone, that killed them. In my opinion, the game was lost on that drive. I tweeted out, I said, Auburn just failed to score inside the 20, and then Brady Cook just came back from the intensive care unit to lead a touchdown drive. This game's over. I picked Missouri before, and I told my fans, our listeners, I said, look, there's something about a team that's finding a way to lose games the way Auburn is right now. And on the road, I did not like the Tigers in this one, but just like every game this season, going into the fourth quarter, they've had a chance to either make it close or outright win it. And it was really disappointing to see them come up short yet again.
I hate to put it this way, but Auburn has looked like a three-quarter team so far. And you're mentioning finding ways to lose. That's got to cause a lot of frustration on every level of the football team, right?
Yeah, it does. And offensively, for an offensive coach, it's so frustrating. Gus was an offensive coach. You had offensive struggles a lot of the years he was here. Harsin was an offensive coach. Offensive struggles, quarterback issues. Now Hugh Freeze, offensive coach, and you're struggling again yet on offense and with quarterback play. 10 points they got from the offense on Saturday versus Missouri. Special teams chipped in 7 on the muffed punt. But you're not going to beat a lot of teams scoring 10 points offensively. So the bar is really low. This defense is playing well. They're playing out of their mind for how many freshmen they're playing right now. I think DJ Durkin is doing a great job, and the trajectory on that side of the ball, Rex, is amazing. They're averaging giving up less than 350 yards a game total, that 339 to be exact. That should be good enough to win you football games if your offense is playing at even an average level. They're well below average right now, which is why they have a well below average record.
And I think the frustrations you mentioned, looking at Coach Freeze post-game and even during parts of this press conference, his weekly press conference as Auburn gets ready for another test here, frustration, defeated. I don't want to call him defeated at times, but you could see that, like, the narrative, I'm not doing enough or we're not doing enough to make the right plays. Now he's going to – I wanted to clarify this with you. Is he taking over play calling? There's a change there. What's going on with the Tigers?
Before the season, he's been asked this question a lot about play calling. Is he taking over play calling? Like, what's going on there? They've done it by committee so far. So Ken Austin, Derek Nix, Hugh Freeze at times has called plays. look, whatever they're doing is not working.
Yeah.
So he's got to get in here. If you're going to die and you're going to go down doing it your way. I said this when Harsin was here. I maintained that same energy for Gus Malzahn. Take over the place. Seems like this is an ongoing conversation. Even down at UCF right now, they're having the same conversations about Gus calling plays that they were having when he was at Auburn. So Hugh Freeze has just got to figure it out, man. $6.5 million a year. This is what you get paid to do. So whatever the answer is, I don't think that fans particularly care. What they care about and what the administration cares about and the people who he reports to care about, they care about the end result, which is 2-5 right now. And we have not even hit November yet. You still got one more October game. You got to go to Kentucky and another game that should be winnable.
Should be winnable. It's another team that's looking to find their feet. You know, Brock Vandagriff, the former Georgia quarterback, is trying to find his feet again. They beat Ole Miss in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Your outlook for this game, a mobile quarterback who should be able to find his rhythm again. You're right. That defense is playing lights out. Could the offense find its footing in a raucous place like this?
If I were a betting man, I would say no.
Oh boy.
However, Kentucky can be limited enough offensively that you could possibly, with some help from special teams, you got to start making kicks, man.
Yeah.
Towns Magoo, look, we don't like to beat down on players, but Towns, you got to make kicks. All right.
And coming out of high school, he was the kid just down the road from Auburn University. Auburn High School, yeah. Right, and he could hit it from 60, 50 yards. And I get it that, like, this is a massive stage. But you're right, it's a matter of execution at this point.
It's all mental for kickers, right?
Gotcha.
He has the leg, but, you know, in that moment, there's no reason he shouldn't have been able to hit that field goal after Robert Lewis misses that touchdown catch, Rich. So it's getting difficult for Freeze. You know, he spoke on yesterday as if the offense is kind of like in a Murphy's Law sort of scenario.
It feels like it watching
Everything
it sometimes.
that can go wrong is going wrong. But that points to coaching, execution, you know, attention to the details. You know, I know we're talking about Auburn, but up the road at Alabama, even now, that process is being questioned because 100%. You had a coach that was a stickler for the details and he had a more business-like approach. And now you got 2 losses before November for the first time since 2007, which was Saban's first year there. Right? So this is uncharted territory for Bama fans. They're losing their minds. They're like, get this clown out of here. Right. And he's got a more aloof style. The question is that the right approach? Can you command respect? My guy Stephen M. Smith, he covers Alabama football at a very high level. We were talking with him on the radio yesterday about this. You know, and I think that there are some things that parallel here with Auburn football. Can Hugh Freeze get the most out of his guys by any means necessary, whether that's loving on them more or, again, taking a more business-like approach? I think everything in that program, especially offensively, should be under scrutiny. Nothing should be up. Can he evolve as a coach?
And that's really interesting because now we're talking about culture. It's not necessarily about schematics.
It's deeper than schematics.
Right. It is not the X's and O's. It is a culture thing. And so that's what's in question right now on the Plains. And we'll see if we can turn it around because, again, we are 7 games in. We got to do some bowl math here real quick. The stretch here, you mentioned going into October, you feared this. This could be a long stretch, and we're in the middle of it. How does Auburn's bowl eligibility chances look right now?
I would give them less than a 20% chance to make the bowl. Right, you've got to win 4 out of the last 5. So that's Kentucky on the road. That's Vanderbilt at home. That's ULM, which should be a gimme. That should be your 3rd win. And then you've got Texas A&M and then Alabama in Tuscaloosa to end the season.
That's not a friendly stretch.
In previous years, you could count Vandy and ULM. But Vandy is a top 25 team now.
What a world we live in.
They're giant slayers, Rex. So they take down Alabama, and they come back the next week, and they beat Kentucky pretty soundly. And they're proving, they're like, look, this Alabama win wasn't a fluke. And I think that's what maybe is so frustrating for Auburn fans is you're seeing around the conference other teams with lesser talent are getting better results on the field because the coaching and the system and the schemes are just better than what they're doing at Auburn University right now. So there's no reason that we should live in a world where Vandy is 5-2 and Auburn is 2-5.
That is still so weird.
That doesn't make any sense. And credit to them. Like Diego Pavia is a great quarterback, but if you're Auburn, you've got enough talent that you should be 5-2 right now.
Honestly.
So it is a tough stretch. It got harder as the season went along.
It really did.
You know, Kentucky, they just got blasted by Florida.
Sure did.
When we were coming into this season, they were a couple games into this season. There were reports that the board of trustees at Florida were getting together to fire Billy Napier, and he has reached deep into his bag of tricks. And now they're sitting here at 4-3, and I don't know, like, if they make 6-7 wins with the schedule they had, which was widely believed to be the hardest in college football.
That's a heck of a coaching job.
That's a heck of a coaching job. I don't think you can fire him and make it tenable. So that's where I thought that was the floor for Auburn. Right, a 7-5 season, at worst 6-6 while you're building, but 2-5. I think rumblings are going to start to come out of that locker room. Mark me, Rex, about kids transferring and going someplace because they're going to get the money wherever they go, but they want to win.
And that's where NIL works for you, works against you. And I think you just mentioned it, that everyone's pretty blindsided by the fact that, because you mentioned on paper the talent's there, the coaching's there, the NIL's there, the defense has lived up to the fact, but like. Doomsday situation. We mentioned tailspin. We mentioned doomsday. Does Hugh Freeze have a deep enough bag like Billy Napier to pull this out?
I heard this said about Georgia. Going into the Texas matchup, there were some questions about the Georgia defense maybe not being like the defenses of old. And the old heads said, look, at this point in the season, you just are who you are. Then Georgia came out and absolutely took Texas to the woodshed. And I said this, I said, look, you guys let those nerds on College Game Day convince you that Texas wasn't going to get belt to butt in that game. But Georgia has been doing this for a long time. They have a winning culture there in Athens. And Texas hasn't been tested. They hadn't really been tested this year. So they come out and they look like the defense that won 2 straight national titles. And quite honestly, last year, even though they didn't make the playoff with 1 loss, by the way, only the Bama in the SEC championship game, I still thought they were the best team in the country. Greg Sankey told me that at SEC Media Days, that he felt like the best team in the country didn't make the playoffs. They're making the playoffs this year, I'll tell you, right? And culture is something, the trajectory is something that you can change midseason, but when you have a culture of winning like they have in Athens, you're more likely to pull it off. Right now, they've yet to establish a culture of winning on the Plains, and so it's going to be really difficult. I think it would take one of the best coaching jobs we've ever seen for this coach to pivot midseason, find something that works, get more out of Peyton Thorne, start to put 21 to 28 points on the board offensively, and help your defense out so you can start winning football games.
I think it's really that simple. You have the arsenal. You have the weapons. You have the ability to do it. I mean, yes, Peyton Thorne's been under fairly some scrutiny because of his performances, but when you have the guys, you just have to execute at this point. And hopefully it's just putting one foot in front of the other. Let's talk about some positivity on the Plains, because volleyball, my goodness, you were on top of this early on. They are now in the top 25, 14-4 overall. Just your overall beat of how Auburn volleyball is doing.
Coach Brent Crouch has it going over there at volleyball, and it was Bruce Pearl that coined the moniker Everything School. Auburn truly is an everything school. Those girls have heart. They are well coached. They believe in each other. They have great team chemistry and culture right now on the volleyball court, and it's something that's really amazing to watch. As I've followed this program, their trajectory is very similar to what I've seen happen with women's basketball. Phenomenal. A great coach with a good plan that knows how to develop players and get the most out of them. I don't know if you remember, Rex, the old great basketball player John Havlicek.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. We're going throwback here.
Yeah. His daughter, Grace Havlicek, plays on this volleyball team.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and so she comes from a great sports lineage, obviously. But
those daughters on there.
and she's doing a great job right now for Auburn volleyball. So it's anytime you see me outside of football, putting in any effort into the other sports, there's something cooking there, right? And if they're going to put in the work, I feel like it's worth covering, and they're definitely putting in the work over there.
This is why Mike G is great at his job. This is why we partner with him. Again, this is you brought up Texas, Georgia. Before we go, I just got to get your opinion on it. I know everyone, it's the trash pile talked around the world.
Yes. I love this question.
The fallout from the fact that you could throw 100 bottles of water or whatever you want to throw on the field and the call gets reversed. Just your overall thoughts of the officiating.
The SEC should be embarrassed. Now, what Kirby was saying was at the beginning of that route, the DB was grabbing the jersey right here, right? And that didn't get caught on camera. People were showing the end of the route saying there was no pass interference. Regardless, and I agree, there was no pass interference at the top of the route. However, you got to stick with the call on the field. That is not reviewable.
Right.
The fact that they went back and they changed the call, but not only did they change it after the crowd threw water bottles on the field.
Not great.
Absolutely embarrassing. Texas got fined $250K by the SEC, but if you ask me, if you want to deter this sort of behavior in the future, penalize the team 15 yards.
There you go.
Right? I think that is the penalty, and you let fans know if you act out, if you run on the field, if you do something silly, it will hurt your team.
And you paid money to go see.
Correct, yeah, because $250K, if Texas wins that game, they're scoffing at that.
Right.
And I think it was a blessing for the SEC that Georgia ended up winning it, because we'd be talking about that very differently today if they had lost that game and you reversed that call. Regardless, the rules have to be applied consistently. This was unprecedented. We've never seen this happen before. And now you've set a precedent that a call can be reviewed 4 or 5 minutes later, right? And something that has previously not been reviewable, and that if fans do what they did, they could possibly buy time to get the call reversed. Absolute terrible. I think the SEC has to nip this in the bud. And look, the fine, I'm okay with the fine, but
sure.
I think other penalties in the offseason need to be implemented to keep this from happening in the future. It was an embarrassment for college football.
You know what? I have to agree with you 100%. And 100% with the penalty. If you want to do all that, act like a child or act like a delinquent out there, just disrespecting and putting people in danger who are on the field, absolutely. Penalize your team as much as you can, and you move on from there. That's a good way to deter it.
Texas actually did go back, though, and they took camera footage, because I believe that was the student section, and everyone they could recognize. They said several bans have been issued already. We're going to continue to review the footage for the remainder of the year.
Good on Texas.
And they're suspending tickets, not just for football, but campus-wide, and saying you are no longer allowed to attend any event for the 24-25 academic calendar. I think that's the right thing to do. But at this point, it's sort of a platitude. At this point, you have to do that, right? Because it's unacceptable. I think that Texas fans, look, welcome to the SEC, man.
Right.
You're not just going to walk all over everybody. And there was a high amount of frustration because they were getting their butts whooped in that first half.
It's Georgia,
like I knew they would.
Yep.
He
called it.
They weren't prepared for that. I went undefeated in our pick'em, by the way, our SEC
pick'em.
pick'em
Look
this
at
week.
that.
Yeah, first time usually, but I called for Tennessee to beat Alabama.
You called that.
I called for Auburn to lose to Missouri, and I called for Georgia to beat Texas. The rest were pretty easy, but yeah, I think that it was tough. My show hosts, they were too emotional to pick against Auburn.
Oh,
right. And
guys.
I said, guys, yeah, I'm sorry. I got to go with my brain on this one and not my heart.
And you know what? That's very hard for sports fans at times. Mike, phenomenal job on Rapport Wednesday. But let's let everybody know, where can they find you on social and just everywhere they can find your content.
Check us out on YouTube. We are at the War Report on YouTube. Lots of great content there. For everybody out there listening that follows me, I've got a new venture going, covering Central Florida football. So go follow Locked On UCF on YouTube as well. Follow me on socials at Mike Gittens, at the War Report, every social media platform.
You know, guys, that's Mike G. We'll go back another week, and hopefully we can talk about something positive when it comes to Auburn football. But we'll see what happens. Mike G, I always appreciate you, my friend. That does it for another War Report Wednesday.